Kelly with Kelly Tennant and Associates, and welcome to this month's video series where we're going to break down assumptions and talk about upskilling and reskilling and really leveraging those multiple generations in the workforce. And really, we're just people trying to work and deal with people. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But the first thing that I want to mention is the hellacious winds that we have been having here in New Mexico. It's springtime in New Mexico. I don't know why it surprises me every year when we have winds, but later on I will be going outside to fish my brand new umbrella out of the bottom of the deep end of my pool. That should be a fun adventure. Nonetheless, let's jump in and talk about, first I want to talk about some assumptions about different generations in general. And this kind of does play into over the workforce. How about boomers drinking from the hose outside? Talking about how they did it. How many of you drank from the hose outside? Yeah, guilty. Although I'm not a boomer, I'm probably more, I would classify myself like, if I had to put myself in a box, Gen X. Gen Z is addicted to technology. We've been saying that essentially since I can remember. Computers became pretty prevalent in the workspace and whatnot. You millennial kids just want trophies and everything. Gen Z has a short attention span. Every generation has a painful breakup. Gen Z, it's TikTok. Millennials, it's Vine. And Gen X, it's cultural relevance. Boomers, always putting their phones on a speaker and shouting at their phone. I'd like to reference the very funny commercial that used to be on the radio, really loud cell phone talker guy. If none of you know what I'm talking about, look that up. It's really funny. But what I'm getting at is, as I've mentioned, multiple generations in the workforce, it's really nothing new. Really, since the evolution of people, we've had to work with different people, different ages, different backgrounds, different cultural spectrums in the workforce. And so that's really nothing new. It's funny because I was having a conversation the other day with somebody, a friend of mine, and we went to have some coffee. We were talking about generations and specifically Gen Z and her daughter being of that group, kind of her daughter's work ethic and work background. And we were talking about that. And she was saying, I just don't see that in my daughter in terms of like what kind of the general consensus is about this particular age group. And I had said, based on my experience, I think it's really more just a stereotype. It really, I think work ethic, views, etc., all have a lot to do with how we were raised, what we were exposed to, what we read, etc. And that has a lot to do to shape some of our values and standards in the way that we see the world, not just the time period in which we grew up, although I think that does factor into things a little bit. And so I want to this month really bust some of those assumptions. And so what are some of those assumptions to begin with? The traditionalist, it's a privilege to work. The baby boomer really has that achiever mentality. Gen X, I happen to be a Gen Xer, although I feel like I fall into a range of categories, but we're going to talk more about that this month. Gen Xers that value autonomy, and I would say for me, like that's pretty accurate. I do value autonomy in my work. I like to have that autonomy. I like to have agency over things that I do, but I also recognize and like the collaboration aspect as well. The millennial that values individuality. Gen Z, a global mindset. And I looked these up, and these were kind of some typical assumptions about these particular groups. I just challenge you to kind of think about this week. Are there any of these that you fit into? And is there more than one? And I can tell you, when I've done this activity, done an activity that's kind of centered around this before, and people will find that they fit into multiple categories. And just because I'm 25 years old, which I'm not, just because I'm 25 years old doesn't mean that I don't feel that it's a privilege to work, that I don't identify with that, or that I don't identify with a little bit of agency over my work. And so we're going to talk more this month about how the role of multiple generations in the workforce can really be leveraged. Instead of trying to put people in these boxes in these categories, how can we leverage people's strengths to make our organization stronger as a whole, to make our team stronger as a whole? Because you over there may be really strong at one set of skills, and I may be really strong in another set of skills. And how can those complement each other? How can we come together to forge an alliance to really make the organization stronger and to make what we're working on, our projects, etc., how can we make those better? And how can we challenge our own thinking? And so those are some things that I want to bring up. Kind of talk about where we're going. We have to talk about, well, what are we actually dealing with? So I do want to spend some time in the coming weeks identifying, well, what is a baby boomer? What are they saying is a baby boomer versus what are they saying is a millennial? And then I want to talk about how we can use mentoring, reverse mentoring, to leverage some of those relationships, and how we can use these relationships to help define and refine our own skills so that we can become more valuable in the workspace and become more valuable to our teams. And so I want to gear up for those conversations this week. But in the meantime, I would love to hear from you. So tell me what some of those stereotypes about different generations you've heard, you've seen. Would love to hear them, and we're going to talk about this month how we can definitely challenge them. So I look forward to seeing you here on the blog and on my YouTube channel. So if you don't subscribe, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to subscribe to our blog. Come out with new content every single Wednesday, and then after it's published on our YouTube channel and through our newsletter, then it goes online to our blog for everybody else. So if you want access to that exclusive content beforehand, definitely subscribe so you can check it out. And with that, don't forget, as my shirt says, your training is overdue. Go get that training done, and we'll talk to you soon.